What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind, and today we will be reviewing Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. So without further ado, let's get into it. So in terms of character development, this movie really does expand on the Hellboy character. And not only Hellboy, of course, Ron Perlman's Hellboy does get a lot of development in this. And it continues with the ideas of what makes a man, even if he sees himself as a man, will the human race accept him? And that's one thing this movie plays around with quite a lot. Of course, Abe in this movie, he gets a lot more attention than he did in the first movie, and you know what, that's good. Doug Jones does a really good performance as Abe, and he gets a lot more development in this movie, which is a good thing. Liz also gets development. You see in this movie that she is pregnant, and you see all her conflicting views on that. I thought that was good development. So all of the characters get further developed in this film. So I'm going to give character development a 10 out of 10 because quite frankly, I can't really fault it. Now in terms of the performances, all of the actors and actresses involved give great performances. Of course, Ron Perlman is the standout performance. He just embodies Hellboy. I don't think anyone could play the part like him. It just comes naturally to his character. I don't know what it is. Selma Blair and Doug Jones do good in their roles as well. And as for the villain, Luke Goss has portrayed villain roles before. And I don't know why he naturally fits a villain role. I think it's to do with his voice and the way he acts. He's just a natural villain, and he does seem quite threatening in this film. So all actors and actresses do a really good job. That's going to get a 10 out of 10 because quite frankly, they're all stand out, especially Ron Perlman. Now in terms of the effects, Hellboy 2 The Golden Army does use more CGI than the first Hellboy film, which isn't bad. A lot of the CGI is pretty good, to be honest. When you think when the movie came out, it could have looked a lot worse than this. However, Guillermo del Toro still uses quite a lot of practical effects as well, and I like that. I prefer practical effects over CGI effects. This movie blends both together, so it has a good result, and that's why I'm going to give the effects a 10 out of 10 because they're really strong effects. I can't really fault or see any which stood out as, oh, that was really bad. Now, as for the story and writing, if the first Hellboy was to do, with the occult, it was a more darker story. Hellboy 2 The Golden Army really does go full fantasy, which I don't mind. I like that we see all of these new creatures, and I really like the route they go down. I think it is more like a fairy tale, and it kind of is a lot more of the comic book formula than the first one was. So I suppose for people who liked the dark tone of the first one, that's kind of lost here a bit. However, to be honest, I think that the fantasy elements work really well. I think it has a better villain than the first film. I think that Prince Nawada is just a more threatening presence. And as I said, I like all of the creatures they introduce in it. They're just brilliant. So as for the story and writing, I'm going to give that a 9 out of 10 because it does occasionally have problems because it's so different from the first film in terms of tone. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now for this film's special recognition, I'm going to talk about how this sequel really does take a different route to the first film. Now, I always think that a film sequel should be different from the first one. It should have similarities in terms of the characters. However, it should tell a different story and really be its own film. And that's what Guillermo del Toro really got with Hellboy 2 The Golden Army. All of the more dark, grounded and kind of demonic elements which were in the first film, they're kind of gone, and it shifts towards a more fantasy story, which I don't mind. I think fantasy really does suit this film. As I've already said, all of the creatures and monsters which are introduced, there's a more variety of creatures in this film compared to the first film, and actually there's quite a lot of humour in this film compared to the first film. Well, when I say there's humour, there's more humour than what was in the first film, and I don't mind that. It actually suits the film really well. So in terms of making a film different from the first one, I'm going to give that a 10 out of 10 because Guillermo del Toro made a completely different film which is just good. So in conclusion, Hellboy 2 The Golden Army is a brilliant fantasy film which expands on the characters and has great performances from Ron Perlman, Selma Blair and Doug Jones. Hellboy 2 The Golden Army gets a well-deserved 49 out of 50, which gives it a grade 1 ranking. Honestly, While the first film might be the better film cinematically, I prefer the second film. I think it just tops the first one in every way. So thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope that you enjoyed my Hellboy 2 The Golden Army movie review. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future, and I will see you in another one. See ya!